Hi guys, welcome to our next video in the series. Today I'm talking to Tristan Williams, who was a former member of the AGECS RAP committee, but has agreed to come back and have a bit of a chat with us. Hi Tristan.
Hello, good to see you.
Good to see you too, man. First question, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Bit about me. So I'm a Wiradjuri Wotjobulak man. So Wiradjuri being from New South Wales, kind of Dubbo area, and Wotjobulak being the top of Victoria, kind of Dimbulla, Horsham kind of area. So I'm a social worker in training per se, third year social work. I run my own business. I'm a disability support worker. Previous study is in youth work and community services, disability.
And you are an early childhood educator as well.
I am, yes. So my first ever study I did. In fact, funny enough, I just did a massive placement, 500 hours in child protection, which gave me a whole other view, like a whole other side of things.
So Tristan, what does Australia Day mean to you?
Australia Day. Now, I've thought about this question quite a bit. Look, to be completely honest, Australia Day, like the term and the word and the holiday in general, actually means very little to me, to be completely honest, especially being an Aboriginal man. Like, I've always known it, and we've always called it in my family Invasion Day, you know? And being an Aboriginal man, the concept of celebrating a date that celebrates the first Europeans arriving in Australia and destroying the lives of countless generations of Aboriginal people is actually really baffling to me.
So Tristan, why do you think it's a contentious date for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people?
Look, I think it's a contentious date for many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people for the reason I just gave before. The lives of countless Aboriginal people and their descendants have been utterly destroyed by European settlers over the centuries, And for many, celebrating this date in which Europeans invaded and went on to kill countless Aboriginal people, steal their lands, turn this beautiful country into white Australia, is a painful reminder of past trauma and generations of pain and poverty.
Question, what are ways in which early childhood educators educate other staff or kids about the true histories of First Nations people?
Yeah, well, I've thought about this too. And how about learning the history from the actual original source? Instead of educators, early educators, Googling information, how about actually making time to seek out and speak to Aboriginal Australians and listen to their stories? I would suggest staff members contacting their local Aboriginal co-ops or gathering places and request for a guest speaker, such as an Aboriginal auntie or uncle, to share their history and the stories. And for all staff to seek cultural awareness training and appreciation training.
Tristan, what does reconciliation mean to you?
Reconciliation. Well, reconciliation to me, AJ, in a broad sense, is for Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people to learn from each other and strengthen relationships. The idea of reconciliation is for non-Aboriginal people to recognise and understand the severe hardships and oppression that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have been subject to and continue to face today, along with recognising traditional landowners.
How do you or can you explain reconciliation to kids?
It's a little difficult with the younger ones, although I would explain reconciliation to young kids or young children, young people, as strengthening relationships between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people, same as kind of before. You can teach young minds that same thing, although young children are not born racist. They're not born biased. It's taught to them. Yeah. So the very best way to teach reconciliation is lots of exposure to culturally appropriate activities, such as weekly Aboriginal specific lessons, like arts and crafts. I remember when I worked in early childhood education, it was for a short time, but I got very fond memories. Like, we made boomerangs, we read Aboriginal storybooks, we sat in circles and did different cultural activities in general. Just make it a part of day-to-day learning.
What activities can non-Indigenous educators do in the classroom?
Well, there's loads of activities, AJ, loads of activities. There's nothing that's going to be tokenistic or inappropriate about getting an Aboriginal or Aboriginal specific or cultural specific storybook. You know, kids love stories, love listening to stories, you know, and the teacher can sit down, get the little group together and just read, you know, learn about Bunjil, learn about the rainbow serpent. There are countless kid books out there that teachers can actually do with their children. Or there's, you know, just very easygoing cultural games and activities. Or, you know, we can just do some art painting. You could get an Aboriginal flag or some little art and just let the kids go wild with it. You know, there's loads of Aboriginal specific games. You know, there's one that I played a lot growing up called Hunt the Kangaroo. I know it's very, sounds stereotypical, but it's not. You know, you just get a ball, especially for the little ones, and you get them to, you roll the ball across the ground, and the little ones use their hunting abilities with a softball and try to hit the ball with little balls, you know, building those skills, but it's still culturally appropriate and, you know, really good cultural activities for the kids.
So what would be your dream for reconciliation?
AJ, my dream for reconciliation would be for Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people to coexist without, it's very much a dream, but without racism, without stereotypes, without, you know, without me going into an organisation and telling somebody that I'm Aboriginal and them having no education and they automatically ask me, really? You don't look like an Aboriginal. What part of you is that? I mean, what percentage of you is Aboriginal? You know, my dream is for, especially in workplaces, for everyone to have a basic or really good knowledge of what Aboriginal people have gone through and, you know, to absolutely abolish and demolish stereotypes, you know, and the whole thing. I want us to learn from each other. I want there to be exactly what it is, reconciliation.
Where would be some places that you would recommend early childhood educators go to start educating themselves around the history and the contemporary issues?
Yeah, look, I would suggest visiting their local Aboriginal gathering places or co-ops. I understand that AGECS is Victoria wide, but just trying to start thinking about some local co-ops here. Like there's the Frankston Gathering Place, there's the in Frankston, there's the Bunurong Health Service in Dandenong, there's Preston, you know, Vars. There's so many places that you could actually start reaching out. And just by going there, you're going to start learning some of the history and getting a feel, you know, of the culture. And, you know, just start educating themselves in different things. Like one of my favorites is actually the Aboriginal Heritage Expedition or Bunjulaka at Melbourne Museum. You could watch some culturally specific movies, you know, like The Rabbit Proof Fence. There's a lot more. Yeah.
Yep. Bit of a question. Why, when you're at school, how much Aboriginal history was taught to you?
How much history was taught to me at school? Right. So I grew up, funny enough, in a small country town in New South Wales. Don't need to go specifically. In primary school, they were quite good. Like I grew up on country. Wiradjuri land. They were quite good in primary school by actually bringing in different aspects. You know, we had a whole subject once a week on Aboriginality, but I don't remember learning too much about the history. By the time we went to high school, the idea was completely thrown out the window. You know, I don't remember learning basically anything, you know, even in small country towns. Like in history, there was, you know, ancient history, there was, you know, the First World War. I remember learning stuff about American history, you know, American history and the, what do you call that war they had? The Independence War or whatever it is. Yeah. So I remember learning about all that, but very little on our own culture here in Australia.
So where do you learn culture from? Where did you learn culture from?
So where did I personally learn culture from? Yeah. So my culture started in my roots. You know, I was brought up on country. I'm one of the very lucky few to have actually been brought up on my country. So I learned loads from my family. Specifically, I learned a lot from you, AJ, being my brother and being as brilliant you are. I can butter you up all day.
I don't know, Tristan is my brother.
Yeah, I know brothers beat on each other a lot, but I've got nothing but praise for AJ. He's taught me tremendous amount. And I've been lucky enough to come to many of your cultural awareness trainings and also participate in training myself. So a lot of my understanding, of course, being from growing up with it, has come from attending, you know, even as an Aboriginal person, attending loads of cultural awareness training, you know, but I've also had the privilege of working various Aboriginal positions. You know, I've gone out and I've sought my own career in Aboriginal organisations and affairs. You know, and I've listened to countless voices and stories of many Aboriginal aunties and uncles and community members. You know, and just talking about, you know, that's all happened and that's all part of my life. But just speaking about my current situation now at my university, I'm happy to tell you that there's been multiple Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander specific subjects that I've, you know, learned loads. So, yeah.
What would be 2 things that every educator should know about working with First Nations families?
2 things every educator should know about working with First Nation families. Well, the first thing that comes to mind when working with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander families is you should really appreciate and understand that we're all different. You know, you don't start working with an Aboriginal family with preconceived judgments and assume that we're all the same, that they're all the same. You know, I'm very different from other Aboriginal people. You'll see that there's no one size shoes fit all. You know, the stolen generation is very real and prevalent. Yeah. So some families may have only just found out about their Aboriginality and may know very little. So keep an open mind and remember to demonstrate cultural humility at all times. Another thing I'd consider when working with Aboriginal families is be careful of the use of, how do we say, Aboriginal definitions and terminology. You know, a lot of the Aboriginal people take offence to the term Indigenous. I know a lot of people don't even know this, but the term Indigenous, I've found over my time, can be quite offensive to a lot of Aboriginal people, because the term Indigenous is actually used to define both Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people together. You know, for example, what I mean by that is I'm a Wiradjuri Wotjobulak man. You know, I'm an Aboriginal man from New South Wales and the top of Victoria. I'm not Torres Strait Islander, you know, so you can categorize us together, yes, but you need to be careful about that, you know, or using expressions or words such as Koori to talk about every Aboriginal person you meet, as this term is also only used for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders from New South Wales and Victoria, you know, where if you go up north, you might be known as a Noongar or, you know, various others. So you need to be careful about that. You know, always be curious and ask people what they'd like to be called or how they'd like to be addressed. You know, this also goes for aunties and uncles. Just because the person you meet is an elder doesn't automatically mean that their title is uncle or auntie. You might even meet somebody who's a lot younger who carries that title. So be curious, be open-minded, and be ready to learn.
So, Tristan, what do you believe is some of the major barriers to early childhood educators incorporating First Nations curriculum and perspectives into the curriculum?
Well, yeah, speaking about the curriculum, you know, I mean, think about, you know, the questions asked before about my own education in terms, you know, going to school and stuff. You know, they're not teaching it in high schools to start with. They're not teaching it in mainstream schools. So I would say a big barrier for early childhood educators would be a lack of their own education on the subject, yeah, or even the confidence to teach the subject. I'm aware that this is difficult for non-Indigenous teachers to feel confident speaking about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives when they don't have enough information to start with. They haven't sought the information, or it just hasn't been taught to them. You know, maybe sometimes out of guilt or fear, they do not have the correct or most up-to-date information. So, yeah, they need to find the information. Information can be quite difficult if you don't know where to look.
So what are some barriers that early childhood educators might have if they're teaching Aboriginal kids?
Yep. I think this is quite similar to the previous question in terms of education. Yeah. Like, if you don't know, you don't know. But if you're not aware of what this young person may have been experiencing, you know, trends generally, or even experiences at home, they might find that quite challenging. Although, depending on the age of the child too, some barriers. So, okay, in an Aboriginal household, this is not all, but this does happen. This child might be very young, but he might still be seen as the man of the house. You know what I mean? He's doesn't matter if there's other adults there in his household. When he's at home, he's the man and he has responsibilities. And a lot of those responsibilities are taking care of his family. You know, it could just be simply he's expected to go down the street and get groceries for his household. He's got a lot more responsibilities than a lot of other children in his class might not have. So then a barrier right there is he comes back into your classroom and you start speaking to him like a little kid, and he might absolutely struggle with that. You know, there might be a real barrier to that, and you might not get through to him. You might just look down and not want to be talked to like a child. You know, same with the not looking. They might not look at you too. You know, you might struggle with that, and you're thinking the child's being disrespectful. But you know, in a lot of Aboriginal families and a lot of Aboriginal culture, when somebody of power, such as the teacher or an educator, is teaching that child, when an educator or somebody of power is talking to you, you look down. It's not out of disrespect, it's out of respect. And if you don't know these things, you might struggle to engage with that child.
What are some of the ways in which early childhood educators can start their journey of learning?
Yeah. You know, I would consider focusing on on their own learning to build their confidence. You know, as mentioned before, you know, visiting gathering places, actually approaching aunties and uncles and community members, and, you know, ask about their stories, get advice, learn, you know, do their own, absolutely do the cultural appreciation training. You know what I mean? It's absolutely vital for every professional to get cultural awareness training. And I'm so worried that many early childhood educators, it isn't made mandatory. I remember when I was doing it, you know, you'd waltz on in, you'd care for the kids, and there was no professional training. So you don't know, you know? So focus on your own learning, be curious, ask questions, keep learning, you'll build confidence. Yeah. And that's what we got to do. Just start, speak to someone, visit a co-op, you know, we're friendly. Okay.
Like being Aboriginal, people presume that you know everything about everything that's Aboriginal.
Yeah.
That's probably not a true reflection of the reality, is it?
No, not at all. You know, I'm always learning. Yeah. Something I've learned, like I can actually bring away from my course, is this term called cultural humility. Now, cultural humility is all about being humble and wanting to learn about cultures that you don't know about. And like, look, Aboriginal people are so diverse. We're talking about a nation of hundreds of countries, you know, language groups, land rights, like land barriers, like just down here in where I am, Wiradjuri land, or the Kulin Nation, you know, there's 5 different countries. Like it's it's so diverse. And I'm not from here. I'm an Aboriginal man, and I've said it before. I'm from New South Wales. You know what I mean? I'm on Wiradjuri country as a Wiradjuri person. My family and my people's customs and the way they do things, right down to the painting or hunting, any of it. You know what I mean? Get rid of the stereotypes. It's different. It's different to what we do down here. You know, we share a common connection to our land and the concept of our ancestors and our feelings, but it's different and it's so diverse. So I'm here as a visitor on this country. I've been in Melbourne. I've been in Wiradjuri land for 10 years, but I'm always learning, and I'll always be a visitor. You know what I mean? I'm still every professional meeting I'm at, I'm still doing an acknowledgement to country. You know, I'm still learning every single day. So yeah, it's incredibly important to continue learning. And even from a perspective as an Aboriginal man, you know, I don't know everything and I don't pretend to know everything. And it can be a real pain when people like to think, oh, look, he's Aboriginal, I'll ask him about something. I may not know. Most of the time I won't know, you know, because it's so diverse.
And you mentioned before not learning a lot at school. I mean, primary school you did, but a lot of high school you didn't learn much about culture. Do you think when people are working with Aboriginal families, do they have to expect sometimes that the family may not know a lot about culture?
Absolutely. You know, I may mention before, I don't know, but when we're thinking about the stolen generation, which is so prevalent today, you know, people think that this happened 50, 100 years ago. It's not. We're part of it. My family has been directly sorry, I'm trying to find the word there. Directly part of this.
Impacted.
That's the word I'm looking for. My family has been directly impacted by the stolen generation. You know what I mean? And what that means is, I don't need to get right into it, but people were taken away from their families. Little Aboriginal babies and children were taken away from their families and had their entire culture completely stripped away from them. They were brought up to believe that they were not Aboriginal. You know what I mean? And people to this day, and they will continue, are just reconnecting with their family, and they're just reconnecting with their culture. So, you know, they're not, people are just finding out, so that they don't know a lot. You know what I mean? A lot of people might have thought that they grew up their whole life just as Australian, no real identity. And the next thing they know, oh, actually, I've got an auntie or uncle who want to connect with me. And now I'm learning about my culture. So how on earth would they know anything about their Aboriginal past, their Aboriginal culture? So they're learning, you know what I mean? So don't walk into a room with somebody who's Aboriginal or other Aboriginal people or Torres Strait Islander people and think, okay, you're Aboriginal, you must know everything about everything, so I'll ask you. I actually cop this all the time when I'm at uni, and I try to keep my head down with it sometimes, you know what I mean? Because they think, oh, there's a subject or a conversation happening about Aboriginal affairs or history, and they're like, oh, Tristan should know about it, all right, he's Aboriginal. I'm like, hey guys, I'm learning too, you know, and we'll always learn. We just keep learning. It's a cultural humility. Yeah.
Do you have any First Nations idols that you look up to?
Yeah, absolutely. People might be aware of Dr. Tom Calma. You know, he's the big CEO, big name when it comes around to Aboriginal quit smoking or tackling Indigenous smoking. A big chunk of my career, about 4 to 5 years of it, I was a Aboriginal tobacco cessation worker or an Aboriginal quitline specialist. And his work on tackling Indigenous smoking and just in the whole Aboriginal health awareness section was highly impactful on me. You know what I mean? I still follow different videos, or, you know, still got him on Facebook, things like that. And, you know, I've had the opportunity and delight of meeting him a couple of number of times. And, you know, AJ, I have to talk about you, because I can't not talk about my main idol, you know, is my brother. You've literally pulled me out of the dirt and gave me a life and an education and a whole world, you know what I mean? And I feel so humbled and so, I have the words to look up to somebody who's done as much for Aboriginal people as you've done, you know? So you know, I follow everything you do. I wouldn't say I completely follow in your footsteps, but I try to. You know what I mean? And you've paved the way, not just for me, but for so many young and emerging Aboriginal people. You know, the work AJ's done with, you know, countless high school Aboriginal students, just finding their culture and wanting to reconnect, and, you know, giving people confidence, and his work across the entire social work community section as a whole has been completely phenomenal, you know, and I will continue to learn from you. You're a great mentor. And yeah, that's what I got to say there.
Thanks, bro. And thank you. So what tips and strategies would you offer early childhood educators who maybe have no idea where to start their personal journey to reconciliation?
Yeah, I would suggest start by asking questions, right? Be open-minded, want to engage. You know, just this term, curiosity, just being curious. It's funny how many people will just look at this as a you know, whatever, dust on the carpet kind of thing. Be curious, ask questions. If we're not scary people, you know what I mean? We might get sick of it if they're oblivious, or they come in with a set stereotype or something. But most Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people you meet will be happy to share their stories with you. You know, will be happy to engage with you, to teach you. If you don't know, you don't know. And we get that. You know, Aboriginal people, myself, you, AJ, we've had to put up with prejudice. We've had to put up with racism our entire lives. You know what I mean? So just start by asking. Start by asking those questions, being mindful, you know. Start by booking yourself in. If you haven't done, I'm going to say it again, if you haven't done cultural appreciation, cultural awareness training, start there. All right. Get your organization to do it, get somebody to do it, because that's going to give you, I'm going to say the basics, but it's going to give you a really good overview of what Aboriginal history and what Aboriginal oppression and people have been through. You know what I mean? So it's really important, but just start by asking questions.
Have you had any experience working on a RAP?
Yes, I have actually. I had the privilege to participate and was part of the AGECS Reconciliation Action Plan. I was actually one of the key consultants and reconciliation ambassadors, kind of partaking and being involved with the whole thing. And it was a really, really enjoyable experience too.
What's some advice you would give other early childhood education services on where to start the process?
Yeah. Look, how about when making the plan, how about sticking to what you say? Yeah. So when I think of creating a reconciliation action plan, it's not just something you do for the sake of making it. You're creating something that is meant to be accomplished, you know? So make accomplishable goals. Don't just make a plan for the sake of making it. Yeah. Know your reasons for creating the reconciliation action plan, the RAP, and make sure to always involve Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the process, as this plan is not only important for educating staff and bringing Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people together, but also ensuring that the organisation is implementing cultural safety and cultural well-being.
Yeah. I agree with that, Tristan. What's something that they should not be doing?
What they should not be doing? Doing it for the sake of just doing it. Yeah. How about if you want to make a plan, don't just do it because your organization has to have one, or because, you know, your CEO or the government says you've got to have one of these here. How about actually thinking of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in your workplace and those you're going to be working with, and the importance of cultural safety, you know, and cultural appreciation, and the people you're working with. You know, I'm sure everyone should, I mean, most people would have they would know or have a colleague or a friend who is Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander or a mixture of both. You know what I mean? And just out of respect to those, same as you'd have respect for anybody else's culture, anybody else's, anybody else in general. You know what I mean? The rap is about connecting and bringing us together and having an understanding of the Aboriginal people in Torres Strait Islander, of everything. So don't just do it for the sake of doing it. That's something you don't want to do. Have a plan, stick to it.
So Tristan, from tonight's talk tonight, what would you like people to walk away with?
What would I like people to walk away with? I want people to walk away with a curious outlook. Okay? Be curious, want to learn. I want people to walk away from the conversations about reconciliation and our action plans and all of this stuff, thinking, you know what, I learned something, I want to be curious, I want to learn, and I want to make a conscious effort to learn more about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture, people, history. I want people to want to walk away and want to make a connection.
Thanks, Tristan. Look, it's been wonderful talking to you. I want to say thank you on behalf of AGECS for your contribution to the RAP while you're actually on the RAP committee, and good luck with the rest of your course. And thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much. Absolutely brilliant.
I'll see you soon, bro.
See ya. Bye.